Thing number one was to incorporate. I have been in business almost 5 years completely for myself, full time. And it was only this last year that the entire year was eligible for S Corp status tax filing. And you wouldn't believe the difference in taxes. I made about 2 years ago, I made about 100,000, and this last year I made about 130,000 after expenses, like my net profit. And without going into too many details, I can tell you it was almost $10,000 less by being incorporated. And it's just a good way to shelter any assets that you ever do eventually develop. You can only go so far in life if, as a tax entity, you are still a social security number. You need an EIN, you need a TIN, you need to incorporate your business. So that would be thing one. Thing number two, bring on a helper. Even if it's not full-time, as often as you can use a helper on jobs, bring a helper in. And combined in number two would be to start using subs. When I started, I thought I could do everything on my own. I would tear down the fence, I would take it back to my garage, and when I got time, I would then take it to the dump. I would go get all the materials, I would bring all the materials, I would do the whole installation, I would come back later on and stain the fence, I would do all my own power washing. The main thing with the subs, I can say, is the haul-offs. That being said, using a helper, there are worries that go into it. You're like, what if I don't have enough work for the guy? Or what if it ends up costing me money? And those are valid worries. I had them myself, but I can also tell you it won't. If you bring on a helper, the type of person who's willing to help you part-time or even part-time on construction jobs, they're not typically the same type of person who's going to demand a high wage and demand a full package of benefits. Like a lot of times you can find guys who will work for cash and are cool with, at least 10 or 12 hours a week. A lot of times these are guys who have roommates, maybe they live with their folks, and they just need the extra spending money. You'll find stuff for them to do. If nothing else, you can have them carry material from the truck or from the trailer back to the job site while you get started doing what you do best and what only you can do. You'll have no problem bringing on a helper. And the pride you'll feel for providing work and wages for someone else, it'll inspire you to take your business even more seriously. So number two, without a doubt, is bring on a helper. Don't be afraid to use helpers, and don't be afraid to use subcontractors to take the load off you. Number three, and I didn't know whether to put this one in the top 10 because I don't know if it really fits, but I guess it would be start my business in general. I was making about $22.50, working 50 hours a week. So a guy was making maybe, I guess, what would that be, 12, 13, 14 a week? And I was just doing jobs on the side. And I always told myself, once this happens, I'll think about going out on my own, or, next summer, or I'll wait till winter. There's never going to be a right time. And the beauty of there never being a right time means that it's also always the right time. Just do it. If there's one benchmark you can use to decide when the time is right, it's start doing side work on the weekends or on your days off. And once those days off are booked out for 2 or 3 weeks and you're telling side customers they have to wait 2, 3, 4 weekends, it's time to quit. And you're like, Andrew, having enough work for 2 days a week and then a third day that I'm having to push off, that doesn't equal what I make. But what you're not realizing is you'll have all the time in the world other than those 3 work days to market yourself, to find customers, to talk to people, to hone your skills. If you get to that threshold where your side work calendar 2 days a week or after work is almost completely busy in a way that's profitable and you're starting to push those side customers back, that would be the time. Like I said, there's never a right time, which sucks, but the silver lining there is that it's also always the right time. And I have a friend who's thinking about doing it, and I asked him, I said, there's one question you got to ask yourself that I did, that every person asks before they go into business for themselves, and that question is, do you believe in yourself? And there's no right or wrong answer. Working hard at a safe, secure job for a good, reputable company that takes care of you, comfortable retirement, there's nothing wrong with that. Going out into business on your own isn't for everybody. You're the accountant, you're the marketing department, you're the laborer, you're the foreman, the manager, you're the CEO, you're payroll, you're the tax and compliance department. There's no hat you don't wear. It's not for everyone, but it can be really rewarding. So number 3, start your business in general. don't wait till the time is right, because you'll be waiting for 40 years for the time to be right. So that's number 3. All right, before we get on to number 4, if you made it this far, throw me a like. You know, if you enjoy the channel or you make it to the end, subscribe to the channel. Consider watching my other views. It helps guys like me a ton. Doesn't cost you a nickel. Something I really appreciate. So here we go. Number 4 would be start expanding outside of fences. For the first 2 or 3 years I was in business, I only did fences. And granted, I don't know how to say what I'm saying. I only had the confidence to do fences. But I got to the point where, like, let's take, for example, patching a hole in the drywall. You know, somebody was moving, you know, a fridge and they lost balance and it punched a hole in the drywall. That's not something I had done before, but I knew if I could give them a bid that was 60-70% of what a real drywall guy would charge, you know, if I could way underbid it and get the job, then even if I screwed the whole thing up and had to redo it or buy double or triple the materials out of my own pocket, that would just be eating the profit. So I would just be spending my time to learn that. It wouldn't be a financial loss for me other than not earning the money I had planned. But more often than not, when you do that, you know the pressure's on and you know how high the stakes are trying something new like that inside the home, the residence of a paying customer that you value. You'll take your time, you'll do a good job, you'll research it, and it'll work out. There have been times where it didn't work out and I had to redo it, or redo all the labor, you know, double the hours, or buy all the material again, and I didn't make any money. But those jobs where I didn't make any money and that happened, those same jobs taught me a skill that I thought I couldn't do, and I'm like, oh, I can do that. You know what I mean? And never has that happened, and it was the last time I did that specific thing. Every time that's happened, I have remembered that skill and continued to hone it and continued to offer that as a catalog of my services, which in the wintertime around here, it's nice to have that expanded catalog, because customers for some reason think, oh, you know, we'll wait till it's summertime to hire you when I'm busy, because they don't want me out there working on the fence in the cold. You know, it would be miserable cold. It's like, well, the alternative, ma'am, is no work. Like, when we go into this line of work, we know what the climate's like all year round in our city. We plan on some hot work days. We plan on some cold work days. So if you're a customer out there working and you're thinking about pushing off a project, you know, for financial reasons on your end, that's fine. That's one thing. A good contractor should understand that. But if you're thinking about pushing a project off because you don't want the poor contractor to have to work out in the heat or out in the cold, I mean, just keep in mind what his alternative is. He'd be happy to have the work. So expanding outside of fences and taking on those different jobs, like the example of the drywall patch, you know, putting roofing panels on pergolas, like those overlapping corrugated translucent roofing panels. I had never done it, but I knew a customer who was a repeat fence customer, and they texted me. They said, hey, I got a bid for this much to do the pergola roof. And, you know, for what it's worth, he showed me the bid and had the material itemized out. And I said, I tell you what, if you get the material, I'll do it for half of his labor cut, which I hated to have to do. I mean, I'm sure the contractor was a good guy. I never met him, but I wanted the experience. And it went really smooth. And since then, I've probably done 10 or 15 tear-off and re-roofs of pergola panels. You know, they come in 12-foot corrugated, like overlapping, and then panels, and you use the screws with your impact that have the rubber grommet on them. You know, maybe a little bit of caulking if you got to go around a downspout. But again, the first time I did that, I had never done that, and I'm like, oh no, you know. But I knew that worst case scenario, I ruin all the material before I realize I have to start over, which is unlikely. You'll know pretty quickly if you have to start over. But I figured worst case scenario, I'll ruin absolutely all the material and have to buy all of it again. And I budgeted enough that I could do that, and while maybe not make a profit, I could do that without taking a loss. And again, that's a skill that I first did maybe 2.5 years ago, and I do one of those for anywhere between $1,000 and $3,000, depending on the pergola size, every 2 months. So I would say 6 times a year, I do one of those that averages about $2K. So that's like $12,000 in revenue every year for the last 3 years, just because I took that chance. So number 4, expand outside of your comfort zone. People say, oh, you want to drill down on your niche in contracting and be the best at it. And I agree. If you get a bid, I always tell customers, if you have a guy give you a bid on this fence and you go out and look at his truck or his van and it says landscaping, drywall, fences, concrete work, painting, tree removal, cleaning services. I mean, you maybe don't hire that guy. It's like, it goes to what another point will be, number 7, but when people's business cards, instead of like their name and their contact nice and sleek, their business cards will be like super fine print listing like all 500 of the things that they can charge you for, that they will do for you. It's not a good look. Like, so yeah, pick what you're gonna do, but also for repeat customers with whom you have your foot in the door, have an expanded catalog of services. Don't be afraid to bid a job you've never done at a low enough rate that the customer will definitely hire you, but at a high enough rate that if you do have to completely redo all of it, there's no financial loss. You know, it's just a break even, and you've now got the skills for the rest of your life. So that's number 4. Number 5, sign up for a Pro Extra card at Home Depot or whatever material supplier you use most and offers a loyalty or rewards program. You'd be a fool not to do it. At Home Depot every year on, you know, like I said, between 100 and 130 in net profit, you know, revenue minus expenses, operating costs. Anywhere between 100 and 120, 130 is what I make. And my Pro Extra card ends up saving me about $2,500 to $3,000, because 6 to 8 times a year I get, you know, $50 or $100 perk. Let's say it's 7 times and it's $75 average, you know. That's about $500. Is that right? Yeah, it's about $500. And then my discount savings add up to about 2 to 25. And there's 2 different kinds at Home Depot specifically. There's like the DIY homeowner, and then there's like the pro/handyman. And the DIY homeowner, it keeps track of your purchases and you can assign them to jobs, but I don't think you get the discounts, so definitely check into that. But like I said, Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, Sherwin-Williams, your lumber store, your fence supplier, wherever you get stuff, see if they have a loyalty program and start using it. You might be like, oh, I'll save 8 cents a picket. That's nothing. It's like, no, but it's 8 cents you didn't have, and if you look back 20 years from now, you'll be like, man, it's nice to have that $30,000, $40,000 in savings. I mean, it adds up. Everything's cumulative. So definitely get a reward/loyalty program wherever you get stuff. 6, start talking to, in my case, roofers, but any contractors or salespeople that are adjacent to your line of work. I used to go to bars a lot, which isn't a habit I would recommend anyone else take up. You're better off investing that money. But being a friendly, personable guy, when I got talking to people and I found out they were a roofer or even a realtor, but especially roofers, I would go out to the truck and get like 5 of my business cards and give them to them and say, hey man, if you have a customer who's got wind or hail damage, you know, the same wind and hail damage that keeps roofers busy, that gets them their work, I'm a fence guy. Wind and hail damage is my bread and butter too. So I'd say, hey, if you got a customer who's doing a big insurance claim and either you notice the fence is thrashed from the storm or the customer mentions it, you know, give them my card. I'll go out and meet with the homeowner, you know, give them a price, but I'll also put something together on QuickBooks, an estimate or whatever, for you to give the insurance. And I would say 4 out of 10 times that I do that, roofer calls me, says, hey Andrew, I got this customer. He's thinking about wanting to add his fence to his insurance claim. Can you go give him a price? I would say about 4 out of 10 times I get those jobs. The other 6 out of 10, either the insurance maybe doesn't honor it, 3 out of 10, and then the other 3 out of 10, maybe they find, you know, cheaper guys. You know, there's a lot of illegal labor here in Dallas-Fort Worth, and for better or worse, I do lose jobs to guys who don't have to pay any income tax. It's just what it is. But realtors is another one. Realtors think it's a flex to have a network of contractors, like if they're representing the seller. And the seller goes, man, the fence sure is an eyesore. Maybe we should fix it before we list the house. You know, if a realtor has your card, they'll be like, hey, you know, I know a guy. This is Andrew's card. Call him. Guy calls, says, hey, you know, Mr. Shreves, I got your card from Joe Realtor. He said you could come out and take a look at my fence. I'm thinking about maybe having it fixed before I list the house. And I'll go out and tell them what it'll cost to fix it and what I think that'll yield them at closing, which they can then confirm with their realtor, or at least confer with their realtor, who's seen a lot more homes, a lot more comparable closing agreements and credits and things like that. So number 6, are we at 6? We are at 6. Align yourself with salespeople, realtors, and contractors in adjacent industries to your own. And that's a big one. 7, business cards. You have to have some business cards. For example, here's what mine looks like. I go back and forth between doing the regular shaped ones and these square ones with the clipped corners, the radius corners. The square ones, you know, they're more uniform, they fit in your wallet, you know, they're easier to keep track of and keep a hold of. But I also think that works against you to a degree. These you can't just fit in your wallet, and if you do, they'll stick out ever so slightly. You know what I mean? It kind of forces someone to either throw this away or act on it. And if they have a fence that looks ugly, which half the people I give cards to do, you know, then this is going to force them to act on it, you know? It doesn't really fit all that well in your wallet. I don't know. It's a trade-off. I haven't necessarily seen a better or worse way of doing it. I had some of the cards that were the regular business card style, and I just think these are a little more handsome. And like I said, if you go to Vistaprint, who I love, this isn't a paid promo or anything, and I'm sure there's other small-time business card producers, but I just think Vistaprint's design tools and their prices are really good. So I use Vistaprint. I'm trying to remember. I want to say it's like, don't quote me on this, I could be way off, but I want to say I got like 500 of them for $34.99, which is a steal. I mean, you gotta have business cards. You have to, whether you even use them or not. You have to have some business cards. You have to have them in the truck. If you're a business, you need business cards. And again, mine aren't fancy. They don't list, you know, gutter cleaning, roofing, concrete, drywall, painting, staining, pergolas, landscape services, cleaning services. You look like a desperate mook. Mine is a contact card. Mine has on it the company logo, my name, my title as owner, my number, and my email. That's it. This is a way to get a hold of me. I'm not leaving these on people's doors or sticking them to their shitty old fence with a thumbtack. I think that's lame. If I'm giving someone this, they already know what I'm about and why they need my services. Same as like I have probably 10 realtors who each have a stack of these this big. And they're not giving them out either. They're not out there pounding the pavement for me. If they're giving these to someone, the someone they're giving it to knows what I do and what I'm about and what value I can provide them. So it just needs to be a contact card. So 7, get business cards, and 7.5, don't make them a little advertising sell sheet. That is the weakest look. So 7, get business cards. 8, I maximize what free marketing I could get online. In North Dallas here, in the North DFW area, we have a lot of HOAs and individual communities. So every one of those has a Facebook group, and you can join those Facebook groups. And most of them have a day of the week where you can post your services. So I started a Facebook page for my business, and with that Facebook page for my business and my personal page, I am in probably 5 to 10 different Facebook groups for individual subdivisions, neighborhoods, HOAs. And I post in there, and the people know me, and I have hundreds of customers, even right here in my own neighborhood. But when I post, it's to the point I've worked for so many customers and taken good care of them that I always get 20 to 30 likes as well as 5 or 10 comments. Oh, you know, I can vouch for Andrew, he's great. Or Andrew fixed our fence last fall and it's fantastic. Or, you know, we had a big storm last night and our fence is still standing strong even though, you know, 3 of our neighbors' fences blew down. No amount of marketing or advertising or selling your services that you can do is going to match that. You know, when people see their neighbors vouch for you, that stalwartly, I mean, that goes further than you ever could. So start a Facebook page for your business, start advertising in your local HOA and subdivision and community neighborhoods around you, maybe not just your own. I mean, ideally, eventually you'll stay busy in your own neighborhood, but I mean, you see guys post that they go all over Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm like, well, if you live in the top right, you know, the northeast corner of Dallas-Fort Worth, the southwest corner is a 2-hour drive. Like, you don't have work in your neck of the woods? I think that looks sketchy. I think that's a red flag. People who are willing to drive more than an hour for, like, any job. I don't know. So take advantage of what free online marketing you can do for yourself. Post pictures, post reviews, post before and afters. You know, free estimates always is a good one. I would avoid pay-for-lead services, Angie, Home Advisor, Thumbtack especially. Those are all a jip. I mean, if I turn on Thumbtack for a year, at the end of the year, I might have spent $10,000 on leads and brought in maybe $12,000. So, I mean, what's that worth? You know what I mean? A $10,000 bill to bring in $12,000? That's not worth it. I will say, back when I was starting, I was on Thumbtack, and I used Thumbtack to where I would do small jobs for people, and then a year, 2 years later, they would hit me up for a very big job. So over the course of my life, it has been a net positive, but some of the late changes to the software, it's just, I wouldn't go for Thumbtack. I mean, if Tim wants surround sound speakers installed, he posts on there, I want surround sound speakers installed, and he messages 6 contractors, Thumbtack, not Tim, Thumbtack charges all 6 of those contractors 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks. And then Tim only picks one of them. I mean, if you own Thumbtack, it's a gold mine. I'm not saying don't buy shares of Thumbtack stock. That might not be a bad idea. I mean, they're printing money on the backs of hardworking contractors. But don't be one of the contractors that they got their suckers into, just harvesting money out of the local small economy. I would definitely get on Facebook. You know, I have a Nextdoor, and it brings me some business. I just don't really know how to use it. That's admittedly a shortcoming of mine. I probably should learn how to use Thumbtack or Nextdoor a little better. But yeah, that's number 8. Take advantage of all the free online marketing and advertising you can do without having to pay for leads or use Google ads, anything like that. Number 9 was retaining customers. For a long time, I would do a job for a customer, and I'd say, thank you for your business. That'd be it. I never do any work for a customer without telling them, you know, this turned out good and I really appreciate your business. I also do this, 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 and this, you know. And if I see something glaringly terrible, like my neighbor's chimney here, the wood trim is falling apart. If he was a customer and I did his fence, I might say, hey, no pressure, no rush. I'm not here to upsell you. But that chimney's going to start leaking. And, you know, they'll look at it like, oh, good Lord, you're right. And they might call you 6 months later to replace all the trim and recaulk the chimney. I mean, always tell every customer, once you're done working for them, not up front, looks greedy, but when you're done working for a customer and they're satisfied, tell them everything else you do. Tell them maybe 1 or 2 things you noticed they might put on their radar for down the road, and then right there on the spot, tell them how much you would charge, you know. Tell them they're encouraged to get a few more bids before they ultimately come to their senses and call you. Another big part of that is during that time after you've worked for the customer and you're explaining your other services, ask them to refer you to their friends and family and neighbors. You think maybe, obviously that goes without saying, if they were happy with your services, they're going to refer you to their friends and family and neighbors. Not necessarily, not always. Maybe they just don't think about it. Maybe they think, oh, my friend lives, 20 minutes away. I doubt Andrew goes there. Let them know the range that you cover and the services that you handle, and ask them, hat in hand, say, hey, if the opportunity ever comes up, will you refer me to your friends, family, and neighbors? Because I really appreciate the work. They will. They will more than not. And if you don't do that and you don't say that, they will at a 1 to 10 ratio. You can 10x the amount of word-of-mouth referrals you get by asking and saying, please refer me to the people in your life if they have similar needs. So that was number 9, retaining customers. Always have that little post-job pitch for them. Number 10, do free shit for the customer. If I go bid a customer, I'm like, okay, I'll tear this down, all new steel posts, rebuild it. It'll look like this picture. I'll send you a few more. It'll be beautiful. If they say, well, the gate's kind of sticky too. If the gate doesn't necessarily need torn down and rebuilt, don't bid them to tear it down and rebuild it. Tell them, look, while I'm here, I'll adjust the gate. I'll give an hour, half hour, 40 minutes of my time to adjust the gate and make some small changes based on my expertise that'll make it strong and smooth again. Maybe not indefinitely, but I can make this gate strong and smooth for you for another 12 to 18 months, no charge. If you pull the trigger and spend $2,000 of your hard-earned money on me and my services as a token of appreciation, I'll do that for you, no charge, while I'm here. Customers love that. It makes you stand out. It's just a no-brainer. And a lot of contractors get tunnel vision, like, oh, what can I charge him for that? Oh, he asked me about this while I'm here. Oh, he asked me about this while I'm here. What can I charge him for that? And that's not the way to do it. But that being said, it's a fine line between also not getting bullied, because you'll have customers that, once you're there and working on an agreed upon project and scope of work, they'll say, hey, while you're here, this, and hey, while I got you, this and this, hey, do you think you could do this and this? There is a time where you're like, and be frank with them. Say, I could do that for you and I'm willing to do that for you. But unlike the gate, which I said I do for free just as a show of good faith, I will have to charge you for that. That'll take me another trip to the store. That's going to add another hour plus of my time, which potentially means pushing back another customer. So yeah, I can do that for you, and I'll do that for you for a discount since I'm already here, but I can't do that for you for free. So number 10 is, don't be afraid to give the customer freebies. It goes a long way, especially if it's a little old lady, if it's like a married couple in like a 3-bedroom house and you see that they've got 8 kids, I mean, they'd really appreciate it. And you know their kids are gonna destroy stuff and they'll have more work for you. So these have been the 10 most pivotal moments / decisions in my journey running a small construction business. I hope this has been enjoyable. I hope you'll be kind enough to throw me a like and a subscribe on the channel. And more importantly, just keep watching my other videos. You know, I got this one here. Me and my wife, we took all the furniture out of our bedroom and shampooed the carpets and painted the bed frames. Nice little 10-minute watch. That was my second video ever. This one here is my first video ever, if you want to see where I started as far as the production quality goes. But at any rate, have a good rest of your day and thank you for watching this video.